Okay, so let me briefly introduce you. So Maurits Butter is our second keynote speaker. He has a degree in chemistry from the Delft University. And after that, he started working in TNO, which is an independent research institute in the Netherlands for applied physical research, was it originally. It has something more than 2,500 employees. And Maurits is a senior strategist at TNO Strategy and Policy, and also a member of the I-team, which looks for science, technology, and innovation. And so can you control the slides, Maurits? Or should I give you?
Not yet, I
not
think.
Yet, but I will give you control. I think you should have control now.
Yeah, I've got control. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you for inviting me. And I'm very happy to say something about those business models for European collaboration. I'm having a difficulty to have it as a virtual network, although it allows me to not wear a tie and not to shave up front, although I did this morning, and also to drink my coffee next to and staying calm, try to stay calm during this presentation. That's very hard to do before a live audience, of course. But I miss the hugs, and I miss the wine, I miss the fun, and I miss Tempero, of course, because I would love to go there. I've been there once, and it's a beautiful area. So difficulty to do this on a virtual way. But I'm very happy to give the presentation. My talk is about the business models for European collaboration. And what my aim of this presentation is to inspire you to rethink the position of HiPEAC, the organization of HiPEAC, and also the members. So the ones that are now hopefully listening to this talk, to inspire them to rethink their position within the network. And I'm sorry, to prepare for paying for the services quite a bit, because that's what my talk is about. It is about payment. As Marco said, it is about mindset, but it's also about the mindset to get paid, to be able to pay for the services that you get from the network. And that's what my talk is about. So hopefully I'll be able to, I cannot go to the next slide now. Yeah, so you take over, Koen, just. So first, it's important to understand why you need EU collaboration. We are now developing quite a bit of insights in why those EU collaborations need to be there, and we came up with those 4 elements. So these are the benefits for EU collaboration. It is about being able to export from one region to another. So the regions are, for us, very important. Capacities. So capacities and capabilities that are not present in one region and just use the ones of the other ones. But it's also about capacity building in general for the hubs or the service providers, as we usually also call them. It is about understanding the best practices from one region and just duplicating it to another one and trying to set up learning mechanisms there. It is about increasing the global excellence of European specializations. Collaborating together can enhance the quality of the work. One region or one service provider does one thing and another does the other. If they are complementary, you can step up to a higher level. That's a very important element here. And the third one is the fourth one, the last but not least, it's about increasing the impact of public and private capital investments. It's about taking away duplication. It's about using each other's private money and public money in a European level, on a European level. That's important to further increase the impact of public expenditures. So those are the four important elements. So can you go to the next slide? But there are quite some challenges. And I think one of the most important ones is that these are wonderful ideas, why you should collaborate on an EU level. But if one hub or one service provider, as you are investing in these kind of collaborations, it doesn't always fall back to you. And that's a problem, because why would you invest in that then? It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort to create those collaborations on a higher level. And that's almost not possible for singular entities, so the individual regional service providers to develop. And if you click, Koen, and that's why you see a lot of ad hoc collaborations. And that those ad hoc collaborations, it's not really investing in a structural EU collaboration. And that's a difficulty, I would say. So can you click again? Yeah. So the conclusion, I cannot help wondering if it's then profitable on an economic level. If you need EU funding to start collaborating between one region and another, and it's more or less that the industry says, that's not that interesting for us. We will not pay for that. Or is there something else? And I think we need to rethink the business models for EU collaboration. And that's, of course, the core business of my talk. So can you click again? Before I go into that, let me share with you some ideas of why governments are investing in these kind of European networks. And it's all about market failure. And if you look at the free market mechanism that we are used to today in our economies, what is failing and can be addressed by the government is that if the free market will not do what is the best way for our society at large, then they have the opportunity to do something. So it's about public goods. It's about just creating human resources, because that's done in universities and it's paid by government. It's time inconsistent preferences. Sorry, these are all the languages of economists in the governments. That's about, if you invest in something, it will take a long time before it really you really get a return on investment. If that's the case, business will not invest. So there's a market failure there. It's about not being able to access the information that's available. If one company doesn't have the same amount of information to make decisions as another one, that's called a market failure. And externalities, last but not least, if you invest as a company in something, but others will profit from your investments even more than you are, then there's a market failure. And that allows you, and can you click, Koen? That's why governments support. You need to keep that in mind if you want to get governmental funding. And that's very often it's forgotten, because you see a company who has a beautiful innovation, and they say, look, we need some money to get that all on track, that innovation. And then the government says, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you do that? Because it's not a market failure. It's something you need to do. And if it's then doesn't address, the network doesn't address these kind of issues, governmental funding is very limited. So can you click again? Now looking at the HiPEAC or European network at large. So a European network, I always make the distinction between the European network and the service providers, which are more or less members of that network. And can you click once? The European network is using, usually in this time frame, they're using EU funding to create support for their members to initiate European collaboration. They also need use EU funding to support the industry. And they allow the members to provide the digitization services that are needed for the industry. And then there's also the interregional connection. So the green blob, amoeba, are the regional entities that are also helping the members. So there's a European level, that's the blue one, and there's the yellow one with the competence centers and the digital innovation hubs, which are the more regional level. And that's, if you click, those are providing the services to the industry. And the EU network is providing the services to the digital innovation hubs, competence centers, or you, to be able to create pan-European interregional collaboration between an industry and a service provider. That's what my view is. If you can click again. And the networks are about creating those corridors. It's allowing one region to work with another region. It's allowing to get the demand being sent out to a digital innovation hub in another region that can then provide the infrastructure and expertise to the other region. That's what the purpose, the mission of those EU networks is. Can you click again? So you can look with, if you're talking about business models, you can look at two elements: the business models for the economic sustainability of the innovation hubs, or you can look at the business models for EU collaboration. And if you can click. So this talk is about the business models for EU collaboration, and it's about organizing an alignment of synergies. That's what the EU collaboration, the HiPEAC, should be about. Not to provide the services to the industry, that's done by its members, but the HiPEAC should be about forging those collaborations. So can you click again? And then if you want to develop those collaborations, those EU networks, I see two steps. So the first step is to initiate, to explore. And the second step is about growth. It's about making it operational in a sustainable way and getting paid for your developed capabilities, for your services. That's very important. And if you can click again. So this requires a rethinking of how you do business as an EU network. So in the first one, you get paid by the Commission. But in the second part, the second step, the EU network, it should be very limited, the EU payment. And that's where you need to rethink your business models. Click. Can you click? So what do those EU networks do? We make a different distinction between four types of services: the ecosystem services, the business services, the technology services, and the skills services. Where the ecosystem services are focused on creating a dynamic ecosystem, the business services are about creating real business, supporting the EU collaboration. There are some technical services also connected, because we are talking about digital or innovation services as such, so there needs to be some structure. And then and that's been done, and that's been provided by the technical services. And then there's the skills and training to ensure that the members are having those strong capacities to collaborate on that EU level. Can you click? And if you then look at the potential payment for those services, you can make a distinction between the service providers, which are the members of the network, the regional national authorities, and the European Commission. And what we saw, and if you can click once again, is they are not going to pay for all the services that are needed to be done. So the service providers are willing to pay for some of the activities, not a lot. The regional and national authorities, governments, it's the same, and also the European Commission. And you need to really think about what kind of services can be paid by whom, in what way, and why? Those are important questions that you need to ask yourself about. And then you come to the business models that you can forge looking at all those kind of services. Can you click again? We identified quite a bit of business models already. I call them sub-business models because usually people say that an entity has one business model. And what we see is that a network, because of the so many different services, they need to have a set of different business models. And it's, if you can click again, it's clear that it's clear that the European Commission funded networks, that's one business model. You'll just get the payment from the European Commission and you start up to set up your EU network. That's fine. But there are also other ones that you can explore and try to make operational. And I'll go into, and then you can click again. I'll go into 3 of them. So there are more. We've got information about those also, but I'll not go into detail because that would be take me another hour, and that's not what I have. Can you click again? So the first one is about the EC-funded EU collaboration. You'll just have the network, you'll have the members, and the EU funds the network as well as the members, and you'll also co-fund your customers. So the customers of the members. And what you do is you provide the network services from the network to the members. The members are kind of giving in kind of contributions to the network. And then it's, yeah, you can make it operational. EU, so the condition is that the EU pays a lot. You have some kind of in-kind contributions from partners. It's about experiments, and it's about research, innovation, and cross-border collaborations. And I'm afraid it's a lot about ad hoc. It's not to create structured collaborations, so those corridors. It's much more about having some experiments, and if the project is done, it's done. You don't get any EU funding anymore, and then it's very hard to use this business model, of course. And if you can click again, this is the present innovation actions. Most of the innovation actions use this business model. Getting paid by the European Commission, do the job, creating experiments, that's it. And that's, I think, it's not sustainable. So you need to also look at other business models. So can you click again? This is one of the business models that you can see. If you have a membership-based service, so the members are paying for the services of the EU network, and they're generalized services. So if you look at this, they provide, the members also provide some network contacts. The key is that it's about economy of scale of the services. So what you do is you create some standardized services, and if you do it together, the cost for the services are limited. And you can provide, as the network, provide those services in a cheaper way. So that's what the business model is about. That's why the members will be able to pay for that. Otherwise, if they need to do it on themselves, they pay much more. The value proposition is crucial, but it's also about being standardized. But you also need to have pre-investments to create a kind of a marketplace and to create specific standardized services. That's very crucial to make this business model work. That's why it's not suitable for every single service. That's what you see in the value proposition. You can use it for some of the eco services, some of the business services, etc., etc. So can you click again? This is about a brokerage with success fee. It's another business model. And what you do is you organize a kind of a brokerage function in the network, and that brokerage will allow one region to connect to another. There is some brokerage fee. So if there's a success with collaborations, the network gets paid for it on an individual basis. But you make the connection, and for a digital innovation hub or a competence center, it's very hard to organize it by himself. If you want to set up a kind of an international network of potential collaborations, it's very costly. So the network takes charge of it. It takes an economy of scale kind of thing here, and then you can use it. But you need to have core information about assets and standardized MOUs. You need to understand how you need to work with each other, and it needs trust. You need to develop trust, because without trust, you cannot connect one service provider to another SME or a service provider in another region. They will not trust each other, and the business will not be forged, so to say. So the third one is about full cost services. And if you connect it to the members, you've got a site where it's non-members and a site where there's members. So if the members are there, they have just full cost for the services. They provide information, and you provide the service for by the network to the members. This is, for example, about business support. If you need to understand how certain member states are organizing their contracts, the Pan-European Innovation Hub knows. If you would need to do that yourself as a member or as an individual digital innovation hub, it's very costly. If the expertise and the capacities are already there in the network, you can reuse that. If you're not a member, you're also paying for some overhead. So this is an interesting model also for specific services. And it's charging full cost. It's using the profits to finance the overhead. But you also only can use it if it's a high value, unique asset for the network. So these kind of things are important to think about. And can you click again? I've shown you only 3 business models. There are much more business models. But what I hope that I've inspired you to think about is that you need to explore those business models and to prepare them in an EU-funded network already. That's the first phase. And if you do that, then you need to combine all the different business models together in order to have a full coverage of your cost. Because that's the objective, of course, to get a full coverage of the HiPEAC cost. That's important. And it also, I hope that your members now are listening to this talk and making the conclusion, drawing the conclusion that they need to think about payment for your services. But you need to do it, the HiPEAC needs to do it in a way that it's also profitable for the members, for your service providers. So can you click again? Concluding, I think the present way of operating an innovation, an EU network is not sustainable because it just cannot survive without EU funding. The EU funding is there to start up your business, start up your network, but also to explore those new business models. Try to test them out. Who wants to pay for what? And a sustainable operation requires a smart multi-business model approach. You need to combine them all. And how can you combine them? Prepare yourself to combine those. And there is there are new business models that you need to find out. There are many business models, but it's hardly explored. So you need to start thinking about that. And I know that you're doing that already. And then last but not least, there are still some EU funded needed because there will be, for EU collaboration, there will be some market failure that will sustain, that will be there also if you run your operation. And it's about creating and maintaining those corridors that benefit the economy at large, but it's not profitable enough for individual service providers. And if you can click once more. This is what the European Digital Innovation Hubs are about. So this is a strategy for by the European Commission, organized by the European Commission to ensure that those regions can work together and pay them to do that work, to create the corridors, to create the EU collaboration. That's very crucial to do. So that's, I would urge the service providers to get in touch with their region and to be part of those European Digital Innovation Hubs, or EDIs as we call them. And then there's the last slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Maurits, for this presentation, which provides a lot of food for thought for the HiPEAC community. You probably are aware that you are indeed looking for sustainable business models for many years, but we haven't found one so far. And the Commission was so kind to keep funding us until now. We don't know how it will be in the future. We should definitely talk to you and have a more in-depth discussion on the possibilities. I have one question. Are you aware of any organization that is already working with such a business model that we could take as an example and learn from? Theoretical models, and then the question is, does it also work in practice?
Yes, there are some examples. It's very limited because usually what we see today is that the European Commission has been funding quite some activities quite intensively for the last decades. Mm-hmm. And what usually was the mechanism, okay, you want to create an EU network, you'll get EU funding. So that was the mechanism. But they are rethinking that now, because what they see is that those EC fundings, it's not, it's never enough. And if you invest in a network and just get paid for doing 20, 40, 60 experiments, and after the project is done, that's it. There are 100,000 of possible experiments. So one or 20, 40, 60 experiments are just a drop in the ocean. So they want to create leverage with their money. So that's why now you see the shift from, okay, you get funded to not EU funded. So to answer your question, yes, there are some examples. Sprint Robotics is one of the nice ones, I would say. It's just a commercial network that refocused their business and trying to serve through membership mechanisms, serve their members with commercial services, but also with some standardized services. So those are interesting to see. Also, Blue Morpho, perhaps you know that, it's an organization that emerged from an FP6 project, and they became self-sustainable. So they operate their business now, and they are trying to do the technology transfer and connect those service providers to actual business, and they make a business out of that. And so there are some examples, but you see the pressure from the European Commission just emerging for the last 2 or 3 years to do that, and not just by, okay, we tried it, that's it, it didn't work, bye-bye. No, they now want to do that. They are requiring that you really take the money from the EU Commission to kick off your business.
Okay, but I think the examples some of the examples that you gave are innovation actions that work with experiments. So there are also other networks that do not do this kind of activities or services, and maybe for them they need still another business model, I think, in order to sustain their operation, like training, lifelong learning. There are other things that you can do which are paying services, and the companies and universities are willing to pay for. Yeah, okay. If I look at the Q&A, there was one question by Sabri, and he's asking whether the current pandemic and its all the consequences that will follow from that, like maybe a recession in the coming years, whether that might have an impact on the business models or on sustainability?
I think so. I think so, because the number of services and the possibility or the opportunity for SMEs and the members to pay for those services are becoming a little bit more limited. So there will be a little bit more thinking about, governments, this is a market failure, because it also increases the market failures. So you can ask the governments then to keep co-funding these kind of activities, but you need to realize then that those governmental fundings are about funding market failures. So you need to really think about the services that you offer if they are a market failure. If they're not a market failure, it's going to be hard for governments to pay for you. It's law. Mm-hmm. The market failures are law. So you need to really get your services explored against the market failures that are out there. Okay.
Good, thank you very much. Well, for the two keynote speakers, actually, I can't ask for an applause here in this meeting because we will not hear it. So I suggest to end this keynote session now. And well, all of you are invited to join the next session, which is on digital innovation hubs, and the Brokerage Digital Innovation Hub Consortium from Finland. So that's starting at 10:45. So thank you all for attending this keynote session, and maybe see you in another session later today or tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.